guys. Welcome back to our channel here at Self Love is the Key Wellness Incorporated. I am your boy Jamel Brownridge, aka Coach J, and we have here my co-hosts.
I'm Cambria Caldwell, also go by the handle of Cam the Queen on Instagram.
Yes. And today we're going to be speaking about tactics on grief and loss. So this
Mhm,
one may be a little, you know, heavy for some of us. So just
mhm,
want to give you guys that disclaimer. If this
mhm.
one is, we totally understand. But,
Yes.
people are unfortunately suffering with grief and loss from their loved ones.
Mhm. Yes, it's heavy, but it's needed, right?
Yes.
So death is a part of life. It's something that you cannot get through life without having to experience and deal with at some point. And
Hmm.
so it's important for us to talk about it, um, put a voice behind it, and we're also going to get personal with you all and share some of our own experiences with grief and loss to help you understand that there are ways to manage this,
Hmm.
right?
Yes.
So we're going to start with the 5 stages of grief and recognizing that this may not be your experience in its totality, that there are different ways that we all handle grief, but these are some of the most popular ones. We're going to go through them and then explain how it can show up in your life, as well as some other tips for how to deal with grief. Okay.
Yes.
So the first one that we have is called denial, right? Which is very common when you find out that you've lost someone that is near and dear to your heart. You can feel like maybe you're numb or like you're in shock and not believe that it actually happened. So earlier I was talking with Coach Jay and I recall telling him when my father passed away that when I first got the call, I didn't believe it. For some reason, it just registered in my mind that my dad was in the hospital.
Mm,
And it wasn't until my uncle called me and said, "Your dad's body is in the hospital, but he is no longer with us,"
mm,
that it really dawned on me that he was gone. But I was in denial, and it took me a few days to really let that settle in that my dad was gone. He was not going to ever call me again, not ever text me again. That was really it. But
mm.
sometimes you can feel denial, and you just don't want to believe that that person is actually no longer going to be around.
And that's hard to swallow.
Yeah.
So the next one that we have is anger. Um, you know, I've experienced grief and loss myself. My grandmother's passed away. When my grandmother first passed away, I was very angry at myself more so than anything,
Mm-hmm.
because my grandma was like another mother figure to me. So it kind of hit me a lot harder than I think most people and grandmas. A lot of people maybe just look at their grandma as their grandma and that's it. But for me, she was my mom. So I was more so angry at the fact of like, why would you leave me? That question of like, why would you leave? Understanding that, of course, she has no control over it. We don't have control over when our expiration date is coming. And so with that, it's just more so, you know, I was very confused on, mind you, I knew that she was sick. I knew everything that was going on, but just did not know that this was going to happen at this time. Just keep thinking that, oh, we still have a little bit more time, a little bit more time, a little bit more time,
Yeah.
but not really
Mhm.
understanding that, like, you know, we don't know. So you have to get all that time in. And I think that I
Mhm.
was a little bit angry just from me feeling like, to a certain degree, I didn't get enough time in. But mind you, I had 27 long years with my grandmother. And to me, I feel like at the end of the day, it wasn't enough time. I felt like I wanted to have 40 years with my grandma, of course, at 50 years, my whole life if I could. But unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. But I was
Mhm.
very angry with just the process of knowing like she left and like I didn't get that time, and I wasn't understanding like why would she leave me and things of sort, but not really understanding like she didn't have control over it.
All right, and that leads me into the next one. So you kind of already hit the nail on the head there with the next stage, which is bargaining,
Hmm.
right? So what bargaining means is that when a loved one of ours passes away, we may start to ask ourselves questions like, well, what if I had done this? What if I had done that? Maybe things would have turned out differently for my loved one. If I only went and saw them a couple of more times, maybe they would still be here.
Hmm.
Again, I have another example. I have a cousin that passed away recently, just in this past year. He had addiction problems, and I recall being angry at him around the time when he passed away because I felt like he was throwing his life away by using substance and living irresponsibly. And mind you, there are many times before when I've had discussions with him, talked about helping him go to straight and narrow, change his life around, and he had done it, but the cycle of addiction kicks back in, and then you go back under and you start to use again. So he was in one of those cycles. He was using, out driving recklessly, and he passed away. But when that happened, I remember, asking myself, "Man, what if I'd have tried to call him? What if I'd have tried to see him? What if I'd have tried if I could have just said something that maybe would have, sparked something in him one last time, maybe he would still be here." Right? But at the end of the day, that was not in my hands. Right? But that's an example of how bargaining can show up when you're grieving someone, the loss of someone.
Yes, and the next one will be depression, which is I believe a very normal state in the process of grief and loss.
Mhm.
I personally, again, my grandmother, I went through that process of being very depressed, where like I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to get out the bed. I didn't want to go to work. When I got to work, it felt like the day was just dragging by. Like it just
Mhm.
seemed like it was so much was going on, but I wasn't seeing what was going on. Like life was just passing me by, but I was stuck in this one place of, you know, the moments just that I share with my grandmother, and all the good times and the bad times and the struggled times and all of them. Um,
Mhm.
so I think that for me it took me a very long time for me to really come to the place of like understanding and really seeking help and understanding that I couldn't do it alone. And I do have siblings, and I think that to a certain degree it was like I felt as if like my siblings wasn't going to be able to help me because we were all dealing with the same thing.
Mhm.
Especially my sister and I, we are pretty close in age, and um, I think that my sister and I both looked at my grandma as like a mother figure,
Mhm.
and so it's like for me to lean on her to say I need your help is kind of like being selfish when she's dealing with the same situation that I'm dealing with.
Wait, is it really being selfish by
I
going to your
I
I
mean
mean, I think we're
today,
gonna go into that for sure, but
yeah,
it's normal to feel that way, but
today I
it
don't
might not be that bad to reach out to your loved ones for support.
yeah, today I don't feel like that would have been
Yeah.
selfish for me to reach out, but
Mhm.
then in the moment I did. I mean, so to be honest, it's like um I think I was speaking to you about this earlier. That was like the first time that I really experienced death was when my grandma
Mhm.
passed away.
Mhm.
I've had like, my other grandma passed away. I've had an aunt that passed away, but it really didn't resonate with me until my grandma passed away. And then when
Mhm.
that happened, it was like, whoa, 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 and I wasn't really able to understand, even though like, my mom kept telling me to process, to prepare yourself, prepare yourself, prepare yourself. I just couldn't see my grandma ever leaving. It's like
Mhm.
I'm raised with this person. This is somebody that raised me and showed me unconditional love and laughed with me and done all the things and been at all my events and stuff. So for me to go from looking at her from that way to preparing myself for her to, leave, it's like, what do you mean? Like how do you process that? You
Mhm.
know?
Mhm. Mhm.
So
The next one, and the last stage is acceptance, right? So acceptance is the idea that you have to accept that your loved one is no longer with us, right? So going back to the example I had said before earlier, when I found out my father passed away, I was in denial at first. I was in shock. Again, I had feelings that I had never got a chance to express. Some I had, some I had not, but I was holding on to that at a young age, 19, thinking I had time, plenty of time to say what I really wanted to say and perhaps reconcile. But that time went away when he passed away, and I had to accept that he wasn't coming back. I had to accept that I would never be able to have another discussion with him. There was gonna be no heart to hearts. There would be no closure, none of that. That the time has passed and all we'll have left is memories. But
Exactly.
accepting that is a reality, even though it's hard to say
That's
goodbye to someone that you're not prepared to say goodbye to.
really a hard state um to be in. It's like that process of, like, I can only imagine how it feels to be the person that's leaving,
Mhm.
but the person to say goodbye, like, I mean, I can only speak from that point of view. So it's like to say goodbye to someone, it's kind of like, wow, like, or if you don't never get the chance to say goodbye, and they just so happen to pass away without you being
Mhm.
able to say goodbye, I can only
Mhm.
imagine how that process can really feel. I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to my grandma, so
Mhm.
I know how that feels. So with that, it's just like one of those things where, you know just being able to come to terms, like, oh, this person is going to leave, this person
Mhm.
is not going to be here. I'm not going to be able to, like you said, reconcile with this person and tell them exactly how I may be feeling, or some feelings you're just harboring, and
Mhm. That is acceptance,
it's
which is
hard.
hard.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
really hard.
So the next thing we want to go over is myths about grief,
Hmm.
right? So growing up, we have several beliefs that we have about grief that may or may not be true. And it may be getting in the way of us being able to properly grieve,
Hmm.
right? So let's go through some of the myths. Okay. Coach Jay, do you want to start off? Or you want me to start off?
I mean, I can start it off.
Okay. So what's the first one?
The first one says, the first myth is there is a right way to grieve.
And that's not true. There's not no
That's
right
not
or
true.
wrong way to grieve.
That's not true. It says reality is some people cry, some people scream, some people want to be left alone, while others seek, social connection. Um, Responses to grief vary widely from culture to culture, person to person. I don't think that there is a right way to grieve. We all, like it says, we all grieve differently. Like you
Mhm.
said, some people may scream, people may cry, people may want to be left alone. Some people want to be rallied around their family and friends. But I think that whatever it is that you feel that you need, seek that. So if you're needing to just be alone and cry,
Yeah.
do that, but make sure that, I will always say, make sure that you do have someone to check on you every now and again. Don't
Right.
just do it alone. Make sure that someone is there, whether it's a family member, a cousin, an auntie, or best friend, someone.
Mhm. The next myth, only the loss of a loved one can cause grief. And that is very much not true. So we did an episode, I believe, called Disenfranchised Grief, like some months ago. I remember, like,
Hmm.
this
Hmm.
is way, way, way long, many, many moons ago, right? And we were just newbies, to this podcasting world.
And here we
But
are now.
right. But we did an episode on disenfranchised grief, and that episode was about losses that were not death. So losses could include like divorce or breakup, right? Loss of a job, it could be like maybe you get injured and you lose your limbs, or you're injured in some way where you just can't move for a while. You lose your mobility. Those are all different types of losses, right? And we have to go through mourning for each of those things, right? So don't forget that. Grief and loss does not only include death. Hmm.
The next myth would be, people need therapy to recover from grief. In many cases, therapy is not needed. However, some people feel therapy helps them navigate their grief journey, particularly when intense emotions are long lasting, or if depression sets in.
Hmm. So everyone doesn't need to go to therapy for every death in their life. Some people do know how to deal with it.
Yes.
It depends. It's situational. So let's say it's someone that it was in hospice and you've known that they were passing away for many years, and you've had plenty of time, and for you it's like you might even be happy they passed because it's the end of their suffering.
Hmm.
It's in their suffering, and then you feel like it's closure for your life. In those cases, you may not need therapy. You may need a social worker to help you, like, to get their affairs together, and that's it, and you're moving on. It's more so case by case. I think it's, again, it's controversial because some people think that, "Oh, well, you gotta go to therapy. Oh, your mama died, whoever, you gotta go to therapy." And everyone doesn't look at it like that.
If some I feel like if someone has been in that process of passing away, or like you said, hospice care, or you just knew that it was going to happen, however, then, and you prepared yourself, and however that may have happened, but you may not need to go. I understand that. As long as you're okay mentally, physically, emotionally, that's totally fine. But I feel like if it was something that was sudden, or something that you just can't process, something that
Of
it,
course,
it's
of
it's
course.
it's
Mhm,
a little bit harder. Of course, I
mhm,
understand. That's what I'm saying. Like,
mhm,
yes, you need therapy for that. I feel like I agree to that, because I think
mhm,
that that's the process that's going to help you with your emotions for the acceptance part. You
mhm,
know.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, for sure. Mhm. Next one, avoid bringing up someone's grief. You should avoid bringing up someone's grief. That's a myth. So I think some people think that they should tiptoe around it if someone passes away, and they think that if I bring it up, I'm going to add to their suffering. But you never know. This could be one of those people who feel like they don't need therapy, and they're just walking around holding all this stuff in, and they may be relieved that you asked them how they're doing. I know, your father just passed away. I just want you to know that if you need a lending, need someone to
Hmm.
talk to, that I'm here, and I want to send you my condolences. There's nothing wrong with doing that, right? You can do that in a respectful way that isn't crossing boundaries. Just let someone know that you're there for them.
Hmm. The next myth would be grief should resolve after a certain period of time. It says the reality is grief has no time frame. Some feel acute grief for a short time, while others struggle much longer. Grief can also change intensity around holidays, anniversaries, and stressful life events. I mean, I believe that grief doesn't have an end. I believe that with time, you only know when your grief is over. Personally, I don't feel, just from my own personal life, I haven't got to the point where grief is over. you know um so for me, I think that I'm at the stage of, like, I've accepted it. I know what's going on. I'm not depressed, anything like that. Like, I understand that. But I do understand that there may be a time in my future where I may just need to, I'm just wondering what she would say, or I just want to hear her voice, or certain things that she would say, or certain ways she may react to something that I've done. All of those things can come up for me, and it may, you know make me cry, or make me feel sad, or make me feel
And
like
that's
I want to be
okay.
alone. So that's
Mhm.
just personally, I feel like
Mhm.
there isn't an end time to grief. We only know when that time comes, like, when you're at that place of, like, okay, well, I can speak about this person and know that I don't have to cry, or I can speak about this person and know I'm not going to feel sad, or this anniversary is coming up, or this person's birthday, or Christmas is coming around, and normally we get together as a big family, or however that goes, and I know I'm not going to feel no type of way.
Mhm. Yes. So what I oftentimes will tell clients is that it may not ever go away. That's a heart that may not ever go away, and it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you if that grief never goes away. That just means that that person meant that much to you, and it's okay. It's okay to cry every now and then, to remember them, to do things in remembrance of them as often as you need to.
Hmm.
And yeah, the goal is that eventually you'll be able to, like, think about them, say their name without breaking down crying to the point where you can't do anything else, where you're just inconsolable. The hope is that one day you will be able to, like, speak their name and talk about something that they did that was impactful for you in a positive way. Right? So, like, I was talking to you earlier about my grandmother, right?
Hmm.
Who passed away. And I told you a story, like, my grandmother was very, very fair-skinned woman, right? Loved her some dark-skinned, bald black men.
Hmm.
And her favorite singer was Tyrese. right? Favorite singer. So I remember when Tyrese's album came out. I want to say the album is called 2000 Watts. I want to
Hmm.
say that's what it was
That's what I
called.
would. Yeah, that's what I
When
know.
that album came out, she and Baby Boy had came out a couple years before that.
Hmm.
So she used to watch the movie nonstop. She loved, her little saucy, sensual scenes and all that of Tyrese and Baby Boy. Um, and so I remember one year for her birthday, me and my cousin went to the Slauson Swap Meet. We from South Central LA, we
Yes.
from there. We
Yes.
went to the Slauson Swap Meet, and someone had a record store, one of the vendors, and they had a cutout, a cardboard cutout of Tyrese for the promo for the
Hmm.
CD.
Hmm.
And we went and we said, we don't want the CD, we got plenty of those. What we want is this cardboard cutout. And we were like, "How much? We will pay it. Our grandmother would love this." And the guy was like, "Are you serious? You really want this?" He was like, "No, I don't know." And he like played with us, but we were like, "Please, please give us this. This would make our grandma's day. She would love to have this. Like we can't afford to have Tyrese come and sing to her, but we
Hmm.
would love to have this cut out." And
Hmm.
so after a while, he gave us a hard time, but I think he was just like trying to like play around with us to
Hmm.
joke.
Hmm.
But he sold it to us. He actually sold us that cutout. I'll never forget that day.
That is so
Took that
crazy.
home, gave it to my grandmother for her birthday, and we played one of her favorite songs by him. It was I think it was what was his name of the song? Have I told you I love
Oh yeah,
you
that's the song. Lately.
lately?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
have I told you? It was that song.
Hmm.
So we played that
She's a singer, y'all.
and we put I was gonna cut that out.
Uh,
We played that. We played that and gave her that cardboard cutout. The look on her face, I will never forget how happy she was that day,
yeah.
right? And I can think about that now, and you see how I'm able to smile and laugh
Hmm.
about it. There was a point where I couldn't do that,
Of
just the
course.
thought, or even I couldn't even listen to Tyrese for a while. Never told
Hmm.
anybody that. I couldn't even
Hmm.
listen to him for a while. Like I would purposely like try to like avoid anything to do with that because it reminded me of
Wow.
my grandmother. But now I'm able to go back and think about that time in remembrance of her. Mhm.
Wow. It's so crazy because like thinking about grandmas and me losing my grandma, it's like I think the way that you weren't able to listen to like Tyrese
Not for
and
a while.
his
Mm-mm.
album, it was like for me it was like I went to listen to the music that my grandma listened to. Like my
Mhm.
grandma, she wasn't as hip and cool as your grandma. She was still stuck in her old ways and listened to spirituals, and like
Ain't nothing
she
wrong
was
with that. My grandma loves some oldies too. I could
yeah.
play those though. I could play the oldies.
Right,
But
and
she
so
loved the
maybe
oldies.
maybe that's what it was. It was just like I could play
Yeah.
those and listen to them, like
Yeah.
listening to my grandma. If I'm understanding correctly, if I remember correctly, my grandma's favorite was like Shirley Caesar. Um, um, it was another lady, Mahalia Jackson. She liked her, like so. She liked a lot of like the older singers,
Yes,
Um,
Mahalia. Good old Mahalia.
yeah,
Yes. You know
so
what you're talking about right
yeah.
there.
So I
Mhm.
would
Good old
go and I would
gospel.
find, yeah, I would find like those songs, and even to this day, like those songs are on my phone, like on my playlist. Like they may pop up every now and again, and when they come on, like they make me think of her. It makes me feel like really good. It makes me feel happy. Um, and then there's just songs on my phone that come up that I listen to that make me think of my grandma, and just make me think of all the happy times and all the good times and all the fun times that we ever had, like all the laughs we shared, and all that good stuff, and just how she was and how protective she was over us and all of that. Like we were sheltered, honey.
Mhm. Mhm. There's nothing wrong with that, But
No, it's
yes,
nothing. It's nothing wrong with that. I
y'all were
love
her
that.
babies. You were
Yes.
her babies, and she loved y'all as hard as she could.
Hmm. And she
Mhm.
showed that. So yes.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
I just want to make sure that people do understand that if people do pass away and you don't feel um like you may not cry or you may not feel no type of way. A lot of people may think that there's something wrong with them, and there's nothing wrong with you.
Mhm.
That's just it's normal. Like we all grieve differently.
Mhm.
So you may like personally, my other grandmother passed away like when I was a lot younger. And I didn't cry. You know, me and my grandma, we had a connection. Like I knew my grandma. I used to go to her
Mhm.
house, spend the nights, weekends, all that good stuff, family functions.
Mhm.
But I, when she passed away, I didn't cry. I didn't. It affected me, but it didn't affect me to the point to when my other grandmother died, where the one that actually played the mother role.
Yeah.
It was just a different vibe. You know, my other grandma just gave me that granny feeling, you know, like she just loves me unconditionally, of course, and so on and so forth. But I didn't cry. I didn't feel no sort of way. I didn't. It didn't affect me to the point to where it was like I can't go to school or I can't, you know, go to work or it wasn't nothing like that for me. So I don't want people to think that, oh, because you didn't feel any type of way or you didn't cry or you don't feel sad or you're not screaming and you don't feel the way that your family members feel, that means that, you know, you're not as connected to them or that something's wrong with you, because that doesn't mean that.
Mhm. Mhm.
So just want to make sure I do put that out there.
Mhm. Yes. So we don't want to go through all of the myths. There's many, but I want to hit on maybe a couple of more that I see here. So, like for example, the myth that moving on is a betrayal to the deceased. That's a myth. So sometimes we may feel that when someone has passed away, we feel guilty for smiling, for laughing,
Mm-hmm.
for, when to go out and do something for ourselves when that's not the reality, right? Like it's okay to grieve, but also continue living your life and doing things that you need to do. In fact, that's a necessity. Otherwise, you'll fall into a deep depression that may be really too hard to get yourself out of. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
moving on is not a betrayal. That's a part of the healing process.
We still have to live day to day life.
Right, right. And then in terms of your loved one, remembering them, you do rituals to remember them. You do things to honor them. You observe their birthdays, observe them on holidays that are meaningful to you. I was talking to you, Coach Jay, earlier about this. Like when I miss my grandmother, I have some of her moo
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes I will put on one of her moo and walk around my house, and just knowing that one time, at one point, she used to wear those and it's close to my heart, that helps me. And that's something I don't have to tell nobody about it. I can just put it on. And
Mm-hmm.
that's just between me and my grandmother. And that's one way I can honor her, right? Or like making some of her favorite dishes. Like I know you, Coach Jay, or grandma's potato salad, one of my favorites. Whenever you tell me you're making her potato salad, I can't wait, right?
That's so true. That is so true. Hey, when I tell y'all, she be like, "Can you make? Can I take the rest of this to go?"
I will. I will take the whole thing. Thank you. That's for me, right? Thank you so much.
No, yeah, no. I mean, we all do different things to honor the people that we love and we cherish, you know, and that's a way to keep them close and near and dear to our hearts, and
Mhm.
to continue to show them that, you know, we we still cherish them, we still love them, we still, you know, they're still with us every single
Mhm.
day, you know. It's just more so they're not physically here, you know, but they're always in our hearts.
Mhm. Right, right. You can move on and still remember them,
Hmm.
and it's okay.
Hmm.
Mhm. 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 Oh, so one more myth, okay? Advice is the best way to help someone who is grieving. Advice is the best way.
I don't
S-
feel like you can advise me on how to grieve. You
I
can't.
no, I agree. I agree with you because
I
everyone's grief is different. Mhm.
Exactly. You know, like I was just saying, like some people they may not cry, some people may not feel sad, you know. Some people may be extremely emotional. So you can't give someone advice on how to grieve. We all are going to grieve differently. People all are different to us differently, you know. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Sometimes the best thing you can do is just be there. Just be there for a person.
All the time. Yeah.
Call them, shoot them a text message, just sit next to them, hug them,
Bring them food.
bring them some food, right? That's the best thing you can do,
Hmm.
right? Play them a song,
Hmm.
offer them support. Say, you know what? If you need me, call me. If you need some
Hmm.
help, let me know. But just know that my heart is with you.
Hmm.
That's better than any advice you can ever give.
That's the best way to really support someone in the process of grieving. And that's really what it is. It's like it's all about supporting our loved ones, family, friends, whomever, in the process of their grief, you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
So what you're saying is right. Like making
Mhm.
sure that just show up for them. Make sure they don't feel alone during that process. They
Mhm.
already feel alone already with the process of losing someone. So at least show up for them to make sure that they understand that they are not alone.
Mhm. Right.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah, so we have one more thing we're going to go through with you all, just to remind you about the things that you can do to help you in your healing journey when you lost a loved one. And so this is called the task of mourning. Okay, so we're going to go through that with you all. And of course, if you have questions, if this topic, really hits home for you and resonates with you, feel free to send us a message, send us a comment. If you want to schedule one-on-one, we're here. Um, just to let you know. The last thing we're going to go through is tasks of mourning. So the first part is accept the reality of the loss, both intellectually and emotionally.
mhm.
Recognize the significance of the loss. It's okay to recognize how much that person may have played a part in your life. That's a part of the process. Don't deny yourself that. Hmm.
Process the pain of grief.
Hmm.
Make sense of your emotions, name them, let yourself feel these emotions. Don't try to bury them up and bottle them in. Speak them out. Do what you have to, write them down, whatever that it is that you have to do to get those emotions out. If you have to
Hmm.
scream, scream.
Hmm. Or write a letter.
Yep.
I've also talked to clients about writing a letter about your grief
Hmm.
to that loved one. Get it out on paper. Write a song, a poem,
Hmm.
a art piece. Do some art for your loved one. There's different ways to process your grief in different ways, artistic ways even.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Adjust to a world without your loved one. Now this is hard, but is a part of the process. Is having to adjust to them not being there. So that means you're going to have to make changes, right? For example, this is someone who was in your house and they have certain tasks. You're going to have to do those tasks or find someone else who can do those tasks.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean you don't love that person, but it's a part of the process of you continuing to live, right? Make sure you adapt to it and adapt to a changing world, right? That the world is ever changing and the world continues and continues and continues no matter what. That's something that we have to all accept and understand.
Remember your loved one while moving forward in life. So create a place for your loved one in your heart that leaves room for new relationships.
Mm.
Find a
Mhm.
balance between remembering your loved one and moving forward. So it's
Mhm.
not saying, oh, I forgot them or I'm going to move on and that happened. So, we're not saying that. We're saying, you can still love them
Mm.
and move on with your life and, like you were just simply saying, adapt to the world constantly evolving. But
Mhm.
that just simply
Mhm.
means you're just still going to leave a little place in your heart for that person.
Mhm.
You can still cook their favorite dishes or your favorite dishes, put that
Mhm.
moo on,
Mhm.
or play that favorite song,
Yeah, play the
or
songs, watch the movies. We're talking about movies too, right? I told you my grandmother,
yeah.
she loved what, the Five Heartbeats, the
Temptations,
Temptations,
yeah.
the All American Jackson 5 movie, like
That's my
all those
movie.
movies,
Yes.
sometimes I'll put those on, old movies, Sparkle, like
Hmm.
old movies that she used to
Hmm.
like. Um, and just remember her. Hmm.
So I mean, just gotta find a balance.
Exactly. Find a balance, there's different ways to grieve, but at no point should you stop living. Because life is for the living. Mhm.
That's so true.
Right. Well, Coach Jay, do you have any last words?
I think my final word would be: don't ever let someone tell you how to grieve. That's my final thoughts.
Love it. Love it. Right. Thank you so much, guys. We're here to support you, right? Not to tell you how to agree, but we're here to support you and on other topics as well. Thanks for getting to the end of this video. If you have, we appreciate you.
This one was
And
heavy.
yes, yes. But it's a part of life, y'all, gotta talk about it.
Yes. And we're here to support you through it.
Hmm. All right. Well, until next time, have a good one.
Bye, you guys.
Bye.